Shem, trying to get through the sugya of Sif Yud Zayin. We've been waiting for this. I think what we're going to do is we're going to skip some of the sugyas of the Rishonim and the Lomdas, which I think most of the Olim have pretty much covered from what I hear. I see Gavaldic charts as well that the Olim have put together, which is Moedik, Shkoyach. And it just shows that the Olim are going through the sugyas. Liebe de Hilchos, but starting from the Makoros, which is really, really special, Baruch Hashem. And the Olim also, if you can, this is what I was told from my Rosh Yeshiva, my Rebbeim. I'm going to be Be'ez Hashem. I'm not going to be here next week. I'm going to be traveling to Chutz La'aretz. So normally I used to go with one kivun, which was yeshiva, but now I'm going for yeshiva and kollel. So please have me in mind in your tefillahs. My Rosh Yeshiva of Shaimag always used to tell us when he went to America on fundraising, he'd always say, I could feel it if the Olim are learning or not. If the fundraising is going good and the checks are coming in, the Olim are also learning. If not, then so Asher, have me in mind, please, because I have an extra ol now when I go to people's houses. So just, I don't have a ticket yet, but Be'ez Hashem, Siyat Shema Meshech is coming, so I won't have to go. But in case I have to go, please have me in mind in your tefillahs that we should be Matzliach, Siyat Shema. So just a couple of hours on something that we skipped last time, which was Sif Yud Daled really, which I'm not going to go into. I did have a lot prepared on it, but we're going to leave it right now. We saw the Makor, the Mishnah in Yuma Pei Gimel, which is really one of the main Makoros for the Sugya, about whether or not Shabbos is Tchoya Hutra. How does it work? Do we say it's Hutra, which means it's completely mutter, or do we say it's Tchoya, which means Be'etzim, of course I'm allowed to do in Malacha, it's Shmir Shabbos, the Chacham HaKodesh told us, but it's Tchoya, which means you know you have to check what you have to do, what do you have to give him, Nevela, you have to give him kosher, what do you hakala kol tchila, how does it work, Lamaisa, and that sugya, Avada we pass Lamaisa that Shabbos is Tchoya, it's not Hutra, even though it's tremendous machlokes, it's tchoya, which means avada, we have to try and find situations that we could do things in the best possible way, as you've seen also over here in Sif Yud Zayin, which we're going to get to, the gabe halachos of Eshinoi. So that's just to sort of sum up that sugya of Sif Yud Daled, that we know that it's considered to be tchoya. In Sif Tez Zayin, we also have the sugya of the menachas samach daled, of being marba b'shurim as well. That how much a person has to be careful if he finds, for example, he's got 2 apples. The guy has to have 2 apples, and he has 2 apples, one on one branch and one on another branch, or there's 3 apples on one branch, whatever. Which one does he take off? Obviously, the nafkamina would be when it comes to marba b'shurim of all sorts of things. What are you allowed to do? What do you have to be careful of? Just to give you an example, what happens if, and this could be negeya, if the lights go out and the child has got a tremendous pachad, which could be, depending on of course the age of the child, could be a shayla pekuach nefesh, which means we say pekuach nefesh, you touch up the mat pekuach nefesh, you can put it on yourself. If you're gonna do that and put it on yourself, so how do you do it, right? For example, here in Eretz Yisrael and many places in Chutz La'aretz, you have one of these circuit boards, and sometimes there's a main piece that puts everything on. So the question is, once I put that on, I press on. If I'm doing it myself, for example, by the way, also by a goy, there's also a shayla marba b'shurim. Just because a goy is doing it doesn't mean that the goy be'etzim, well, you don't have a heter to ask him to do something that will be marba b'shurim. But if I'm doing it myself, do I have a heter to switch on something which is also going to switch on the hot plate and the crock pot and the fridge and the light in the place over there that I don't even need? What heter do I have? I have a heter to switch on the light in the dining room because the child is in pachad. So that would be the shayla b'marba b'shurim in that case. Or for example, if there's 2 light switches and you're allowed to switch on a light switch for whatever reason, do you have a chiyuv to take the light switch that switches on less lights as opposed to the one that switches on more lights? So again, if you're dealing with a chodesh yesh b'sakana and it's bowl, don't even think about it. Don't start getting into lots of danger, by the way, of learning the sugya. When you don't learn the sugya, so then okay, boom, Shabbos. When you learn the sugya, all of a sudden you start handling, one second, the feed the shitas of the Ramban, I'm not a shino, a goy, whatever it is. If there's no time, don't think about it. Whatever you learn is gavaldik, but it's a chodesh yesh b'sakana, go for it. Just go and do it. That's how it is. So that's what a person, that's the sugya of Sif Tez Zayin. Try not to be marba b'shurim if you can, but there's a major machlokes tamazai when it comes to netilas neshama. What happens if a person has a heter to shecht, right? Which is a sugya over here, also Tez Zayin. You have a heter to shecht, that there's time to shecht and do malicha and everything else, right? So do you have to, is there a chiyuv, the Kavachaim closes the shayla, if there's a chiyuv to take a smaller animal as opposed to a larger animal? Do we say there's a shear netilas neshama, or do we say netilas neshama means I'm taking the neshama away? Manaf kamina, bigger neshama, smaller neshama. What's the chiluk? At the end of the day, the chicken, the cow, whatever it is dying. It's enough kamina if it's bigger or smaller. So the Kaf HaChaim goes through whether there's ribui shiurim in that sugya or not. We're not going to go through the whole sugya now. If you want to look it up, the Kaf HaChaim, it's Sikot and Pei Zayin. It's also the Aruch HaShulchan Tezayin as well. Goes through that sugya. So that is the sugya of Yudalad and Tezvav we didn't get to, but Tezayin. I want to really get to Yud Zayin, because Yud Zayin is, of course, we've been saying this from the beginning, the central sif in the whole thing. And if we wouldn't do justice to it, we have to really understand it properly so that we can get some halacha l'maisa. And I really want to skip to halacha l'maisa. I want to get some seder to, what's the das ha-poiskim when it comes to a choyle she'ein bo sakana. So the sugya is in Shabbos Kuf Chav Tes. Yeah.
Because the animal's bigger physically, it doesn't mean it has a bigger neshama.
Wow, who said? Dam or nefesh, right? The dam is getting life support from the heart, right? That's the mitzias. Dam or nefesh, that's where we're learning from.
The dam's physical.
And chanami.
But when neshama's not.
That's true. When we say neshama, I don't mean neshama else. For those people that learn Tanya and we're talking about the Tzvay neshamas, that's not necessarily what we're discussing. Netilas neshama doesn't mean necessarily that. No. It's talking about in general, the dying over there. Huh?
It's talking about the nefesh of the Hamas.
Oh, very good. Oh, Taka. Good, excellent. I see Taka holding in Tanya. Valdik. Okay, so the sugya in Zayin Kuf Chav Tes in the Gemara in Shabbos, Chodesh she'ein bo sakana, you can ask a guy to do a daraisa, and it comes to asking a yid or a yid doing a malacha, that is a shaila. Many shitas. There are 4 shitas be'etzem that the Olam saw. You made a chart on it, right? I saw the chart, the Rishonim, beautiful chart. So that we have all the Rishonim that the Olam understood. I'm not going to go all through the shitas right now because everybody saw the shitas. I'm sure everybody has the shitas and knows the shitas. But we pasken psak of the Shulchan Aruch, like the third shita, which is of course the Ramban, the Rashba, and others. Okay, the Shaila, how you learn exactly everything, maybe we'll get to some of that in a minute. But Akaponim, we're learning like the third Shita Ramban, which is Be'etzem the Refuah, which is also the Ra'ah, Pashtus and the Taz, Pimigodim, Vilna Goin, Chayadam, and Aruch HaShulchan, and not the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, but others as well. So that's the basic halacha l'maisa, which means, according to that, the third Shita means that a goy can do, and a goy can do an Issa Daraisa, and a yid could do a Durabanan with a Shinoi. That's the pashtus over there. Now, before we even get to some of the different shilas that come out, and there are a lot of different shilas I really want to try to get to as much as I can, is what is a chodesh she'ein bo sakana? Let's define. What is the definition of a chodesh she'ein bo sakana? Again, we've discussed that a little bit at the beginning, but let's just do a chazar on that. A chodesh she'ein bo sakana, as is defined over here quite clearly, over here in the Sif Yud Zayin, and this is one of the most negeya illnesses that a person Be'ez Hashem will never have, but could have, is a chodesh she'ein bo sakana. We'll talk about Be'ez Hashem also, what if he has a suffix chodesh she'ein bo sakana? What does it mean, a suffix? That would also get to. But the idea generally is that a person is nafal mishkav, he's sick enough that he would go to bed. There is absolutely no sakana on his life whatsoever. There's no danger to his life. He's in sar kol haguf, and as it's clear from Shulchan Aruch Ramad and Eitz HaKelim, that even if he's walking around, he's going to, I always tell the boys, the enough community between, whatever, I'm going to say it, but enough communities, if you got a job in the morning or you got yeshiva in the morning. So if you got a job in the morning, have a job. That's what I always have to do. We have yeshiva, I'm saying, have yeshiva, no, you meet a guy who's going to work the 2 days after the chasna. He's going to work. Okay, what can you do? He has work. What do you want from him? He goes to Kollel 2 days after the chasna. I say, hello, Mr. Michiganer. What's the matter with you? It's crazy. The emes says, unfortunately, that's the way we, whatever. But the mitzias is, this guy decided he's going to Kriyas HaTorah. Pushing himself. He wants to go to Kriyas HaTorah. He wants to go to lining. So he goes Shabbos morning. Does that mean he's not a nafal mishkav? About not. He still is. He's still a nafal mishkav in all sense of the world. It doesn't mean he's actually in bed. You see the Aruch HaShulchan says this very, very clearly in Ois Yutes as well, in the other poskim as well. If he pushes himself, it doesn't take him out from being a choyle she'ein bo sakana. Not only that, Shlomo Zalman claims the shayla, what happens if going to bed's not even going to help him? Right, his toe is hurting him so gefährlich that his whole body he's taken up by the whole thing of his toe hurting him. Right, it's really painful. Not stam meichesh. It's mamish. His whole body. Going to bed's not going to help him. If going to bed would help him, gewaldig. If going to bed would help him, he would go to bed. then the very fact that he's not helping him, he's not going to bed, is not a raya that it's not a chodesh she'ein b'sakana. That's the general rule over there. It doesn't have to be choyle kol haguf, the Aruch HaShulchan said. Even if it's one eva, one chelik of the guf, it's considered to be a choyle she'ein bo sakana, and that is the din over there. The choyle she'ein bo sakana at the end of the day. Third shita Ramban means a goy could do a deraisa. Again, we'll get to the specifics in a minute. And yid could do a dirabonon with a shinu, which is then, as what we said, is the psak from Kamat all. Many of the Rishonim are going to run the Taz Pashas, Tosfos Shabbos, Eli Rabbah, Vilna Gaon, and Pashas of the Mishnah Berurah as well over there. Now, let's move on to some of the sugyas to see others.
If we're matter amir la'akum, is there any mila to try to do berembes, or if we're matter?
No. If we're matter amir la'akum, it means you can ask the goy lehedya, please do this for me. And that's the general in amir la'akum, whenever it's mutter.
The we don't say,
no.
Try to do...
No. Let's move on. Let's try to get to some of the shaylas that come up over here. So a guy could do a deraisa. A guy could do a deraisa, meaning, of course, he could drive, he can carry in a place where there's no erev. We're talking about a Rosh Hashanah deraisa. If you've got such a Rosh Hashanah deraisa and he's carrying the medication through there, he could drive to the pharmacy, whatever it may be, blood samples, all of these things can be done. By the way, the person can let the shayla. What happens if a person makes himself into a choyle she'ein bo sakana, right? Which Avad is also, but a person who makes himself into a choyle she'ein bo sakana, there's an orchas chayim in Shin Chav Ches, Ois Yotes, it brings a Chekelah, Aloch, or whatever, that they bring down that if a person makes himself into a choyle she'ein bo sakana, it's also for a yid to do any drabonon for him. Which is an interesting shayla. It brings a Magen Avraham actually in Tofresh Memois Dalet by a case of the Shilshul Ein Shamol the Rayas. But I just wanted to point out that nakuda over there. So
before Shabbos?
No, then it'll be okay. If he did it on Shabbos. Again, the shayla is lemaisa. If he actually did, would be making for such a person, because tachlis is a chodesh she'ein b'sakana. He did something wrong to get him into that situation, but lemaisa is a chodesh she'ein b'sakana. But he clears the shayla. He wants to say that it will be a problem. So now let's go into. I really want to move fast to try to get as much as I possibly can. So let's go now through a yid. A yid could do any dirabonon with a shinoi, which we will define. And of course, he can ask a goy to a deraisa. So let's talk about. Let's talk about this. First of all, by the way, again, this is all the Barmakomis. I wish I could give you all of them. There's no nafkamina really if the choyle does it or if somebody's doing it for the choyle. When I talk about a durabonon with the shinoi, there's no nafkamina between the choyle himself or somebody else that's helping him. That is absolutely fine. There's no problem with that whatsoever. However, there are two things that cannot be done, even though they're be'etzem and issa durabonon. So even though we paskin like the Ramban, and even though we paskin like third shita, which means a yid can do a durabonon with a shinoi for a chodesh she'ein b'sakana, there are two examples that a yid cannot do, and they are durabonons. The first example is an issa deraisa with a shinoi. An issa deraisa with a shinoi is be'etzem a durabonon. Right, because that's the mitzvah. If it's a normal, it's a proper shinoi, so it turns into a durabonon. However, the poskim say, and again, there's many rayas to this. The poskim say that since at the end of the day it's b'yasoidai deraisa, so you can't turn it into a rabbonon, have a shinoi, and use the Shulchan Aruch to say I'm doing a durabonon with the shinoi, because you're not really doing a durabonon, you're doing a deraisa with a shinoi. The only thing is the olam, as I came in, the olam Baruch Hashem, the Gemara in Ksubas, which many of the Rishonim are handling the sugya over there, which is where we're coming from, seems to be mashma, if many of the Rishonim and the Ramban and everything else, that you can do a deraisa with a shinoi. And you look at the Balatanya, you look at the Shulchan Aruch Harav, which is also, by the way, it's not only a Balatanya, it's not only Shulchan Aruch Harav and Graz, it's also the Eglital, brings it la'alocha l'maisa, it's also the Tila David, we mentioned the Tila David last time, Rav Yashav Zatzal held Tila David, he also held l'maisa, you could do a deraisa with a shinoi. You could do a deraisa with a shinoi, so everybody asks the kasha, how can it be? What's going on? There's a Shatzin, by the way. You can look this one up yourself. I'm not going to give you all the answers. In Tov Tzadi Vov, Shatzin, Sikot, and Tess. Also, whether it's called Derech Mefarik or not Derech Mefarik, over here, Masha'ikid, it's a new Tzura. I'm changing it completely. It's not even considered to be a Malacha. Right, over there, Masha'ikid over here, you're doing Be'etzim Malacha, you're just changing it with the Shinoi. That will be to answer the kashas of how that works. So, Lefi Zeh, according to the Shulchan Aruch Harav, which is not only the Egletal and the Teladovid, It's also, by the way, the Eli Rabbah, the Torah Shabbos brings it as well. The Ben Ishchai and Shuvish Rab Polim also brings it as well in that case. So therefore, because of that, many of the poskim say, Rav Ozna has a tshuva in Shevet HaLevi Chelik Chesim and Tzadi Gimel as well. Shmir Shabbos brings it, Shlomo Zalman Shulchan Shlomo brings it as well. That B'shachas HaTzoyich Godel, you could be somer on that. Again, if you want to be somer, you can be somer on the Shulchan Aruch Harav, somer Shulchan Aruch Harav. But again, if you go with the Mishaburas, then obviously it's a little bit of a difficult way to learn. But on Kaponim, there's definitely what to be somer on B'shachas HaTzoyich, B'shachas HaTchat Godel, which it generally is anyway. You can be somer on the Shulchan Aruch Harav and many Gedolei poskim that hold you could do a Doraisa with a Shina. By the way, you have to know Hilchos Shabbos to know what's a Doraisa and what's a Darabanan and what means a Shina. Okay, you can't just come along with. You have to know all of Hilchos Shabbos for that. So Be'ez Hashem, just wait a little bit longer till we get to that, huh? I have a Shina. Yeah. Mm-hmm. No, I have two Shinim. Not Shayach. So now the next example of what a Yid cannot do, even though it's a Durabanan, is a Malacha She'ein Tzricha Legufa. A Malacha She'ein Tzricha Legufa, the Sukkahs of the Gemara we're all familiar with, about what's a Malacha Tzricha Legufa, Malacha She'ein Tzricha Legufa. Lemaisa Malacha She'ein Tzricha Legufa is a Durabanan, because it's not Malachas Machshavas Asur Torah, but al Kaponim it's a Mohammed Durabanan, which means that a person cannot do that even with a Shina. Now the only problem with this is, true, but we find many cases, and again, I wish I could go through all the Marmakomis now, but in many places that you find B'mokim Tsar, and we're going to see it later on in Shinchov Ches, about 3 examples. For example, about the koitz, we're going to find an example about a Mapis Murpa, when you've got a pus pimple, all of these things, that if there's a case of Tsar, you are allowed to do a Malacha She'ein Tzricha Legufa. So I understand, so why over here can I not do it by a Chodesh She'ein Bar Sakana? What's the nafkamin over here? So they bring b'shem. I have it from Rabbi Shmuel Orbach. Okay, it could be have different people. Rabbi Shmuel Orbach Zatzal brings that when it comes to Chazal allowing a person doing a malacha l'shein tzricha legufa, even though it's a Mohammed Rabbanon, that's because it removes the tsar immediately. When a person has a thorn stuck into his skin, which is tsar, and he's going to be taking it out, which will be causing blood, which he doesn't need, which is why it's a malacha she'ein tzricha legufa. It's mutter because he's removing the tsar miyad. Masha'inkin over here, unless you find the case that it does, then you're not removing the tsar immediately. You're just lightening the illness. On that, they were more machmeh. That's what Shmuel Orbach Zatzal wanted. Now there are other answers that many of the other posts can bring.
He said stomach, let's say by AC where it doesn't cure him, right? And it's going to make him more shmak for him. And even though it's a Darabana, we still can't do that. So I'm saying, what's the Chiddush over here that like here, if it's not going to cure him straight away, you can't do it. Obviously, you can't do it. It's not.
No, in the case of the air conditioning, first of all, we're dealing with a Darabanan, right? And we're talking about a situation of a Cholish Ish Pasakana that Agav is hot, right? So the question is, can I also do other malachas together with it? Here we're talking about being matter, someone doing a malacha she'ein tzricha legufa, which is a Darabanan, but it's a Muhammad Darabanan because beside it's a Daraisa, because one machshava, say the Rishonim, changes it into an Daraisa. So it's not a regular Darabanan, right? Air conditioning, unless you learn that in Chazon Ish, is the Kula Alma is basically going to be a Darabanan. You can't turn it into a Daraisa. So maybe you're starting from a much higher point. Since you're starting from a higher point, what's the pshat over here? They were not Mekel. Masha'in came by, for example, the case of the Koitz, they were Mekel, because you're taking it out immediately. You're relieving them of the Tsar now with that action. So made a Malacha She'ein Tzricha Legufa, Mokum Tsar, that goes to Barabanan. Masha'in over here now. Now,
we're looking at that from the Shulchan Aruch. I pulling out a tooth.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Same cheshon because he's taking it out immediately. Once it's out, he's got no tsar anymore.
Is that true? If the person has infected tooth.
Pashtus. Maybe you have to clear the mitzvah or something. Yeah, pashtus. Yeah. If he's got if taking out the tooth is going to heal him, then as soon as you take out the tooth, it's over, right? He's now calm.
Versus the that's not a refuah. It's a suffix sakana.
Right. But it does. The tsar is that he's got the tooth over there. When you take out the tooth, there's no more tsar. So the minute goes according to that cheshbon. Once you took out the tsar, you could do malacha she'ein tzricha legufa, makon tsar goes to barabanan. Masha'inkin over here by Cholish Ish Pasakana, we're not going to say that. That'd be the chiluk. Let's move on about very quickly. The shinoi. Case of shinoi. The whole Indian of Shinoi, we have to understand the Indian of Shinoi. Shinoi is a sugya b'fnei atzmoi. To understand what is a Shinoi, on Shabbos, Tani Beis, talks about the sugya of a Shinoi. How does it work? We know that taking a daraisa and doing what the Shinoi turns it into Darabanan. Lemaisa also will depend. Losing your left hand, for example, will not always be a Shinoi. Putting off the light with your left hand is not a Shinoi. Because sometimes you'll take a do it with your left hand if it's easier, and that's what that's where the light switch is. Masha'ike by shkito, ksiva, something that requires a precise action. That's when your left hand will be a shinoi.
Any way to turn off the light with the shinoi?
You could do your elbow with the shinoi. They talk about that. If the tutsar is the same, it's not really a shinoi. So enachanami. Over here they want to say that enachanami. You're right. The tutsar is the same, so you didn't change anything. So at the end of the day, the light's off. Mind of kamina. But since over here we're dealing,
the keyboard.
which malacha shein go for also.
No,
It's also malacha shein going to go for switching off. If it went off.
Then you could say I changed it by using my elbow.
Right.
When the malacha is the keyboard and the keyboard is the same,
So then it won't help you.
that's what I'm asking.
So the boys going to say that over here, when it comes to a situation of a chayla, they will make on these shinuyim stamazah that you don't have to go ad kedei kach of the best shinui. Only when you're dealing with something where be'etzem there's no heta, but you're doing with the shinui to make it lighter, then you have to make a chiluk. But in a case over here, poskim will make on that case.
We can do it with Shulchan Aruch Harav, the Raisas.
Yeah, Shas Tzorech for sure. Shulchan Aruch Harav with the elbow, not with the left hand, with the elbow. Dafka with the elbow.
That the Tzor should change.
The Tzor's not.
By Melechus D'Oraisa, here
Right.
you shouldn't by the Rabbanon. Maybe it's only to change
But-
the Master.
Okay, according to Chazon Ish, putting off a light would also be deraisa. Remember that.
But I'm saying here,
So I'm saying you have to know all the Shabbos before you know all the answers to all of these.
We're going to Shulchan Aruch Harav, Shas Tzorech, Shevet HaLevi.
Then for sure.
So the Raisas b'shinoi, elbow.
Elbow.
It's two pulas. It's the Shevet HaLevi and the elbow. That's what's
Right,
the same.
and also because of Malach Shen Sukkah Gufa. You also have that. Yeah, it's another. Yeah,
What's enough given for a right-handed person to use his elbow as left hand? It's the same shit, right?
you're doing it in a weird way. A left hand, if I'm right-handed, a right-handed person uses his right hand for things, right? His left hand generally not. A light, something like that, it's not something you dafka use your right as opposed to. That's the difference. Actually, elbow is something completely weird. It looks weird. It's something not the usual.
That's for Morris Island for yourself.
No, it's for yourself. Moving on, okay, so when it comes to, for example, carrying in the Erev, if there's no Erev, or if you don't hold to the Erev, whatever it is, I'm not going into that. So what would you do in that case? Again, you hold it, you put the medication that you get from your neighbor in your hat. If you don't wear a hat, you put it in your socks, if you wear socks. Whatever it is. So you have to figure that out, how to do it in a way that's not normal, right? Maybe in the oven. Moving on, Rabbi, so we got to get tons of stuff, and I want to get something on the parsha also. So asking a guy to do a daraisa, we said avada you could do a malacha daraisa. There's no problem asking a guy to do a daraisa. The shayla the price can ask, what happens if you could do a draban and ask a guy to do a daraisa? Is there any Indian of asking a guy to do the Mishnah Berurah talks about it, and avada even if a guy is still available, then you can still do it. There's no Indian lamaisa, even though the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch is machmeh, and he also you should get a guy to do it if there's one around. The Mishnah Berurah is mekel tel David Chai Adam, and Nishmas Adam also holds to be mekel. You do not have to get a guy if they have a yid around. Now, when it comes to medication. This is the kasha. You open up Sif Yud Zayin. It says we pass out the third shita. The rabbanon with the shinoi. Okay, it's the classic example. Ladein lolechem shouldn't be negated to anyone. Person is choyle, he's sick. He needs medication. He meant to take it with the shinoi. So how do you take medication with the shinoi? Is it on the taking shaboy? Is it on the swallowing? Do I have to turn upside? Like, what do I have to do to make it into a shinoi? So it's interesting that many of the poskim, Moshe, for example, he has a big tshuva on this, Gimel, where he wants to say, you should take it with the shinoi if it's possible. But if it's not possible, you don't have to take it with the shinoi. And that's the Ma'aseh. Many of the poskim say that you don't have to take it with the shinoi since it's basically not shaykh to take it with the shinoi when it comes to medication. You don't have to worry. When Nissen Karel, it's wanted to be machmeh and say that if you can, you should take it with the shinoi, pick it up with your knuckles, and put it in your mouth with your knuckles, do it to sant away. Because the Shulchan Aruch paskins that the third shita that you need a shinoi. A yid has to do it with the shinoi.
You have a shinoi when it's shaykh.
Okay, so that's what the person what Moshe says. If it's not shaykh, no shinoi. But Mr. Kollel says, why is it not shaykh? To pick up the pill with your knuckles and put it in. You did it. So that's exactly what I said before. Is it the achila? Is it not the achila? Is it the taking of the medication? What does it mean taking it? Swallowing it once into my mouth or putting it in my mouth? You have a raya for that? Boss? That what?
You see that the boss will say that the problem is that he's being fatted even with his mouth. The problem.
That's because that's the malach of mafarik. It's very different. then you're doing it with the shinoi, not with the shinoi. That's the malach of mafarik. They're mechalik between how to do it with your mouth, not with your mouth. Over here, medication is not always taken with your mouth. People have cream, you can put it on your hand also. There's suppositories. There's always mahalchim of taking medication. Then taking your medication with your mouth is by putting it into your mouth. That's it. Then it's gone. So once it's in my mouth, it's gone. So maybe it's the putting into my mouth that I have to make a shinoi. That's from Mr. Kollel. That's how I wanted a taina. Put it in a Tesanta way, and then it's a shinoi. He's not saying you're chayiv, by the way. You don't have to. He's saying if it's shaykh.
It's still steig,
Yeah. Chodesh she'ein b'sakana, yeah. Why not? Yeah.
Nobody says that it went away.
Yeah, is there no difference between...
Why should it go away? Why should it go away?
Is there no more to say that Shiur one dafka, they won't go by Kollel Shabbos?
Again, what's the dafka over here? That reason over there. So Moshe wants to say in that mahalach. We won't go to b'chlal, and therefore you don't have to worry about shinoi. Mr. Kollel tells no. Still by medication, you're doing an Issa D'Rabbanan called Refuah on Shabbos. You need a shinoi. If it's shaykh.
Why is it b'chlal? Why is Kollel Shabbos b'chlal?
Because if it's not shaykh, it's not shaykh. That's why. What do you want me to do? If it's not shaykh, it's not shaykh. That's why. So one second. So what's the alternative? He shouldn't do it. No, come on. He's a Chodesh she'ein b'sakana. What should he do?
It's also very bad.
Get a guy to find another way.
Get a guy to put it in. Get a guy to put it in.
I'm saying if it's don't do it. You need a shinoi. You need a shinoi.
Why is it Kollel Shabbos
to say that if it's not shaykh, if it's not
why is it
shaykh,
b'chlal
to not drive my car, so I should drive my car because it's too far to walk. No, you just...
No. 1 second. There you have it.
What does it mean if it's not shaykh, it's not shaykh? If the Ramban says you can only...
No, there's no shinoi.
So do it with the
Not shaykh because I can't be bothered to do it. Not shaykh because there is no shinoi that works for this case, which means I don't need it. So I don't need it. So I don't need it. No, getting a guy wouldn't help you. It's the same it's the same medication that you're taking even get a goy. In other words,
Why is it b'chlal?
this is how they're learning.
Why is it mutter?
This is like this. First of all, Nofel Mishkov means right? However, they wanted to make sure, as we'll see later on, but this is with the eye thing, that you have to do something to show yourself and the world that this is better than something that's not so simple. Mimeli, you need a shinoi. If there's no shinoi, if there's nothing that you could do to make a shinoi, then you're doing a d'Rabbanan for the sake of a Chodesh she'ein b'sakana, which is mutter.
No, you matter d'Rabbanan with the shinoi.
What? The shinoi was an add-on. The shinoi was an
In
add-on.
order to make it okay, otherwise we'll never say it's okay. So it's not okay.
You never mounted from You never mounted from
Not a doraisa.
Maybe they're being Saimach on other Rishonim.
It's hard to say that the Rishonim are Samech and other Rishonim.
And Shuvas, and they want to go into Maggid.
Could be. But the Pasha says only when you saw Moshe inside. Okay. You have to see the Moshe inside. He goes to the Shaila of maybe they won't go to Bachlal, but goes to Rabbanim and maybe you don't need it. But even Rabbi Kollel, who holds that you should have one, is saying if you don't have one, then you don't need one. Because be'etzem, it's mutter. They wanted the shinu as a hecker for a person to know that this is what it is. He touches it up. I don't know if he doesn't learn Pshat and Rabban that way, but it's how obviously he learned. Yeah, it's obviously how he learned. Yeah.
So you have to with the shinu?
Yeah.
And you're putting on the oil?
If it's shaykh to do it. That oil you could do with the shinu, you could do with the back of your hand.
Even though that's not a malacha.
Right. Yeah.
But since the Meister Refuah,
Yeah, that's how Mr. Kollel says. Take it with the shinu if it's shaykh to do that, and do it from there. But again, it's a chiddush, by the way. Most poskim hold you don't need to take medication normally, and that's the psak gabaisa of most poskim manoch and amaisa. You don't have to worry about it. You can take a measuring spoon, by the way, even though medida is also medida shamitzvah is mutter, so there's no problem of a person doing that in that case. Let's move on. I say we have to move. We mamish have to move. Skip a few stages over here. A couple of things I wanted to get to point out for the olam, and that is what happens if a person is not a chodesh she'ein b'sakana, but he will. Not he will, but he might become a chodesh she'ein b'sakana. I mean, right now he feels okay, but he knows, every person knows his goof, right? He knows that he's going to be feeling a bit schwach. By tonight he's going to already be in bed. What's the din in that case? So we know the famous Rav Shlomo Zalman and others that preventing an illness has the same din as a person, actually curing the illness, which means halacha nemaisa come on all the poskim are mekel that a person right now has a din of a chodesh she'ein b'sakana, even though he doesn't have the symptoms and he's not bad and not on the mishkav in this case over there. By the way, the posting clear the shaila, I asked Rafal the shaila, what happens if a person's only going to become a Chodesh Shein B'Sakana on Motzei Shabbos? Meaning this sugya comes, comes to get Shabbos afternoon, so he feels okay, but he knows Motzei Shabbos over. What's going to be if I quickly chop it and take medication now? Then I'll come to Kollel Sunday morning. If not, I don't know what's going to be. So therefore, Rafal told me there's no problem whatsoever. There is no, even though by the way there's a Tila David that wants to say Nishtazoi. He brings a raya the Tila David from the Magen Avraham that says Davka Shtorkla B'Shabbat Atzmai, and Remnissen Karelitz Shitosai also wants to be Machmeh and like this Tila David and say that if it's going to be a Motzei Shabbos, it's not going to help you. It has to be these a Chodesh Shein B'Sakana on Shabbos. If he falls a Chodesh Shein B'Sakana on Motzei Shabbos, it's not going to help you. But come on, all the poskim hold that it's okay, right? And this could be the gay. A person, for example, goes for a strep test on Friday afternoon, and the doctor said, "Listen, you for sure had strep. Start the medication now. Forget about whether or not it's a continuous medication. We'll get to that different sugya." But upon him, a person right now he feels okay. I feel, what's the problem? I have no problem with this. The answer is he's allowed to do it, even though right now he feels okay. There is no problem. By the way, they talk about it when Tisha B'Av, which Be'ez Hashem this year we won't have. But if we do have a Tisha B'Av, what day is it? This is a Sunday, if I'm mistaken, right? So this year, I said we have the Shaila. Everybody wants to take medication on Shabbos afternoon, so that all these pills, whether they do help, they don't help, psychological, not psychological, Weissnish, whatever it is. Machazik Mizgod, we'll get to it later. We'll talk about it over there. But Akaponim, not only caffeine pills, by the way. People take headache pills before because it stops them from getting. Is a person allowed to take it on Shabbos afternoon so that Tisha B'Av night or whatever it is, it helps them in that case? And many of the poskim hold that's no problem whatsoever. In that case, Rafal told me if it's only a suffix that you're going to get a headache, whatever it is, he just says you shouldn't. But there are eights that you could do, which we're going to get to later, of hiding it in food. And if you hide it in food and take it on Shabbos, there could be an eight. We will get to that. Who?
Even though you hid it yourself, you know where
of course. As long as you hide it for Shabbos, we'll get to sugar later. Get to sugar later. It's the big. That's one of the big attain for medication on Shabbos, by the way. Baruch Hashem, not too many Bachram here, but if they were, you know what they will tell me. There we are. Loophole. No loopholes.
We were handling the pills. Why don't we say that Shiur and putting the pill in the water?
That's only a shinya of something that you know you're going to take, and you do it before Shabbos. You can't do it on Shabbos. Into water by itself, the pills in water by itself is on a shinya. It has to be in powder inside. You can't do it on Shabbos. It has to be done before Shabbos. That's why. Okay, we'll sugi later on. It's a whole sugi in the Gemara later on. You'll see it. What do you mean?
His headache,
it's better than Refuah. It's a preventative measure. I know I'm going to, not me. Someone knows they're going to get a headache. So it's the same thing about preventing it. Slow release, same thing. Same thing.
So it's not happening on Shabbos.
Doesn't make a difference when it's happening. The mitzvah says I'm taking medication, I'm taking a pill. That's the Isser Refuah. Lemaisa, they'll make it anyway because you're preventing yourself. Tisha B'Av and the Yom Kippur's one again.
He's saying it's Refuah.
We have to move. Oh, very good. That's the Gemara in Beitza. First mission in Beitza, Ein Shom. But so we have to go because I want to get something on the Parsha. So this come out, Sofik, we're going to get to in a second. So if a person's not a Chodesh Shein B'Sakana, but Chas V'Shalom, he will become one. All the boys, Mincha Shabbos, Eglet Tal, Igus Moshe, Mincha Shloima, all the Marmakomis, that there's no problem with a person, even if he's only going to become a Chodesh Shein B'Sakana after Shabbos. Sofik Chodesh Shein B'Sakana. What does that mean? It doesn't mean that you really have the Sofik. It means that the doctor, the doctor, you're not sure if what you have is nichlal. In other words, the doctor's not sure if you have bronchitis or not. I was like, doctor, I don't know, I'm not sure. Let's do more tests, whatever it is. So the doctor's not sure if you're a Chodesh Shein B'Sakana. You feel ish, okay. If you're enough on the mishkav, say enough on the mishkav. Avad it's heta. So you're feeling okay. You went to the doctor took an X-ray. I'm not sure if you have bronchitis. Now what? If you have bronchitis, you can take medication. If not, not. And you're not enough on the mishkav at this stage. So what is it? What happens in this situation? So the Meister of Shlomo Zalman says very, very clearly, Mincha Shloima, he brings down Siman Tezvav. He says that Sofik Kavada, and we're not even talking about medication, by the way. Medication Kavada you could do. We're talking about Mechal Shabbos, right? At least maybe deraisis and drabanons, not pills, but doing things, whether it's Hitzah or other things, asking Goyim to do things, all these things, Sofik Kavada, and you could be Mechal Shabbos whatsoever in that case. Rafal Kalamaisa told me that you have a Cheskes Issa, and since you have a Cheskes Issa, and we're dealing with the Nisa D'Rabbanan, which is only Tchuya, by a Chodesh Shein B'Sakana, you have no heter. So Rafal told me you have to be Machmeh in this case, but again, Rav Shlomo Zalman definitely was making and said, Sofik Kavadeh, what? Yeah, you have a chazaka being healthy. There's no reason to take yourself out of a chazaka, unless a doctor tells you otherwise. That's what Rafal told me. I think it's in his chuvas also.
You're trying to figure out what your wife means.
We mamish have to go.
You've got your wife and you're trying to figure out, not like a socket from the doctor, you just don't know what she's, you don't know if that's enough for me.
If she's enough in the middle, okay. So
you know? Like,
meaning she's feeling very, very schwach, but she's not sure if she's not in the school or not. So it's enough to be Saimachon. We spoke about it also by Miktzas Choyle. Remember we spoke about that, the chile between a Miktzas Choyle and a Meichosh. You could perhaps be makel for medication for sure. You could be makel. One last thing we're about to say before we finish, because there's a lot more to do, but not now, and that is children. I just wanted to compile for the Olam, especially when you have the Ramah. The Ramah says very clearly that a child's got a din of a chodesh at a much earlier age. This is very negaya. You have kids that complain of headaches and all sorts of things. Are you allowed to give medication in that case, right? So it's very, very clear. By the way, if you look at the Mishabur and Meishayin Bob, Sikot Vav, the Mishabur says that tzorich v'kot no chodesh b'sakona. So like the Ramah says, a guy can cook food for him. What age is a din of a child? When we say a child, what do we mean? Do we mean a baby? Do we mean under bar mitzvah? What do we mean? So by the way, Chacham ben Tzera Bashaul in Or Letzion says bar mitzvah. That's what he learns. Under bar mitzvah as a child, over bar mitzvah as an adult, finished, end. Simple. Shmir Shabbos wants to say it's like Yom Kippur. And like Yom Kippur, the Minchas Yitzchak, by the way, is a beautiful tshuva, Dein Weiss. Minchas Yitzchak also in the same halach, 9 or 10. That's what they learn. There's a Minchas Yitzchak in two places, by the way. Chenik Aleph Ayin Ches, Chenik Tes Simon Laman Hey. Al Kaponim. There's other Tzitz Eliezer, as a tshuva in Chenik Ches Simon Tes Vav, Oisud Beis and Zayin. That wants to say until 6, maybe Ulai until Vav, until 6. Reb Moshe seems to say that it's until 5 or 6. That's the age. Rabbi Zul Orbach told me it's still Be'erach 3 or 4. Rav Falk told me it's still Be'erach 3. The Chazon Ish, Rav Shlomo Zalman, Rav Yasher, Rav Shevet Alevi hold 2 or 3, and Dayan Fisher held until the age of 1. So Baruch Hashem, we found every shita in the book, Rabbi Isai. Now you could just, I want to give the item the shitas, what it is. There's a Yavitz that says it hasn't reached Chinuch. Halacha L'maisa depends on each child. Meaning, most children, you'll know your own children. If they need it, give them the medication. Okay, even if they're a bit older than 3, 4, 5, 6. You have to know your child. If they're able to cope with it, then maybe over a certain age, maybe not. Definitely 3, 4, 5, 6 for sure. That's for sure. Over than that depends. Every child is different.
Or you tell them it's Shabbos?
No, themselves. In other words, if you know your child that he can cope with it, then you're okay. If they're going to get whatever it is, then just give them medication without asking too many shilas. Let's quickly switch shifts over here a second, just to give the oil on one side. So